What if the two things we desire most, love and financial security, are also the very forces that quietly erode our peace when left unchecked? We dream of a relationship that feels like home, yet arguments about money can turn that home into a battleground. We long for financial freedom, yet in chasing it, we sometimes trade away the intimacy and connection that truly make life worth living. The truth is, love and money are not just practical matters. They are mirrors, reflecting our deepest values, fears, and desires. According to the recent survey by the American Psychological Association, money is the leading cause of stress for over 70% of couples. It's not just about the numbers in the bank account. It's about what those numbers represent: security, trust, respect, and sometimes control. And when those values collide, even the strongest bonds can fray. Love without financial stability can feel like walking on thin ice. Money without love can feel like standing alone in a mansion built on sand. But what if there was a way to bring harmony to both? Not by chasing perfection, but by mastering ourselves. 2,000 years ago, the Stoics, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, lived in times of political chaos, economic uncertainty, and personal loss. Yet they cultivated an inner stillness so profound that no external storm could shake it. They believed that true wealth was not in possessions, but in having few desires, that true love was not in controlling another, but in living with virtue and clarity. In this video, we're not just going to talk about love or money in isolation. We're going to explore how the Stoic Lens can reveal a deeper connection between the two, and how mastering our inner world can bring balance to our outer life. You'll discover practical ways to apply ancient wisdom to modern relationships and finances, tools to dissolve conflict before it grows, and a mindset that can carry you through both abundance and scarcity without losing your center. If you find value in this journey, I invite you, quietly, without pressure, to support Stoic Now. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and help us create a space where philosophy meets everyday life. Because this isn't just about tips or strategies. It's about reshaping the way we see love and money, so they no longer pull us apart, but move together in harmony. And that begins with the first Stoic principle, learning to master what is within our control. Number 1, control what you can. Epictetus once said, "Some things are in our control and others not." At first glance, it sounds so simple that it's easy to dismiss. But if you sit with those words, if you really let them settle into your mind, you'll realize they are the key to freedom, not just in philosophy, but in love and in money. Think of your own life. How many hours, how many days have been consumed by frustration over something or someone you couldn't control? Maybe it was a partner's shifting moods, the way they seemed distant for reasons they wouldn't explain. Or maybe it was the stress of watching the stock market dip, your savings trembling like leaves in a storm. In both cases, your peace wasn't stolen by the event itself. It was stolen by your insistence that it should be different than it was. The Stoics understood this trap well. They taught that the boundary between what we can and cannot control is the most important line we will ever learn to draw. Inside that boundary lies our thoughts, our choices, our actions, our character. Outside it lies everything else: other people's opinions, market forces, the weather, the past, the future. And here's the paradox. The more energy we waste trying to control what lies outside the boundary, the less power we have to influence what's inside it. In love, this means you cannot control your partner's feelings, choices, or reactions. You can't dictate how they process stress, how they interpret your words, or how they will grow over time. You can, however, control your own behavior. You can control the tone you use in an argument, the way you listen, the patience you extend when misunderstandings arise. When you anchor yourself in this truth, you stop making your peace dependent on another person's emotional weather. You become steady in your own presence. In money, this principle is just as liberating. You can't control inflation, recessions, or the sudden loss of a job due to forces beyond your reach. But you can control your spending habits, your savings rate, your ability to learn new skills that make you more adaptable in the job market. You can control whether you let fear drive your financial decisions or whether you act with discipline and foresight. In both love and money, control is not about domination, it's about self-mastery. Consider the story of Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled the Roman Empire during times of plague, war, and political treachery. His journals reveal constant reminders to himself to remain unmoved by what lay beyond his control. He didn't write to change the world outside him. He wrote to change his inner world, so that he could meet life's challenges without being consumed by them. You might think, but if I stop trying to control these things, won't I just become passive? The answer is no. Stoic control is not resignation, it's precision. It's directing your effort toward the one place it will always matter, your own mind and actions. A Stoic doesn't stop caring. They stop clinging to what they cannot change. Try this simple practice for 1 week. Each morning, write down 3 things you're worried about. Then divide them into 2 columns, in my control and out of my control. For the first column, decide on 1 concrete action you will take that day. For the second column, write 1 sentence of release. I do not control this, and it will not control me. At first, this will feel awkward. You'll still feel the pull to try to change the unchangeable. But over time, you'll notice something remarkable. You'll have more energy, more clarity, and more patience for yourself, for your partner, and for the unpredictable turns of life. Because once you learn to guard the gates of your attention, you stop letting every passing wind blow you off course. You realize that love is not about controlling another's heart. It's about showing up with integrity regardless of how the other responds. You realize that wealth is not about bending the markets to your will. It's about steering your own ship through calm seas and storms alike. Control what you can, release what you can't. And in that space, you'll find not just peace, but the power to live and love with unshakable strength. Number 2, value alignment. Seneca once wrote, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." In relationships and in finances, that port is your values, the guiding principles that quietly steer every choice you make. And yet, many of us enter partnerships without ever truly naming our own values, let alone discovering if they align with those of the person we've chosen to share our life with. Shared interests can make for pleasant afternoons. You might both enjoy hiking, watching old films, or dining at new restaurants. But interests are surface level, values run deep. Interests can change with the seasons of life. Values are the bedrock, the things you will defend, the things you will sacrifice for, the things that determine whether you feel fulfilled or resentful in the long run. Imagine a couple where one values security and stability above all else, while the other values adventure and spontaneity. At first, their differences might feel exciting, even balancing. But over time, those same differences can become battlegrounds. How money is spent, where they live, whether they save for the future or seize the moment. These conflicts are not really about dollars or destinations. They're about 2 different visions of what makes a life worth living. The Stoics would tell us that living in harmony requires alignment between our actions and our values. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to act in accordance with nature, by which he meant in accordance with reason and virtue. In a relationship, that means knowing your personal definition of a good life and ensuring it doesn't pull in a direction opposite from the person beside you. In finances, that means spending and saving in ways that match what you claim to care about, rather than blindly following trends or social pressure. So how do we uncover and align values? Start with a quiet exercise, value mapping. Take a sheet of paper and write your top 5 values. Not the ones you think you should have, but the ones that genuinely guide you. These might include freedom, security, family, growth, contribution, or creativity. Ask your partner to do the same. Then compare your lists. When you do this, you'll quickly see the foundation you share and the cracks you may need to address. If your lists match closely, your daily decisions will flow more smoothly because your priorities will naturally support each other. If they differ widely, it doesn't mean the relationship is doomed, but it does mean you'll need to consciously create agreements that respect both sets of values. Financial decisions become much easier when guided by shared values. If you both value security, you'll naturally agree to build an emergency fund before booking expensive vacations. If you both value freedom, you might choose a simpler lifestyle that allows more travel and less debt. In both cases, the choice feels less like a sacrifice and more like a step toward a shared vision. The same applies to love. If kindness is a shared value, you'll both instinctively soften your tone in moments of conflict. If growth is a shared value, you'll see challenges not as threats, but as invitations to evolve together. Seneca warned that wealth without purpose is an empty pursuit. In the same way, love without aligned values can become a slow erosion of joy. But when love and values walk in step, your relationship becomes a true partnership, one where even hard decisions feel like they're building towards something meaningful. This isn't just philosophy. It's a form of preventative care for both your heart and your bank account. It means fewer arguments, more clarity, and a stronger sense of walking the same path. Because in the end, harmony isn't about never disagreeing. It's about knowing that your deepest compass points in the same direction. When your values align, love becomes lighter, money becomes clearer, and life itself begins to feel like a journey you're taking together, not a tug-of-war you're trying to win. And that is a form of wealth no market can measure. Number 3, moderation and self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less. Or rather, do what's essential, what the reason of a social being requires, and in the requisite way." In those few words lies one of the most underappreciated Stoic virtues, temperance, the art of moderation. It's not about denial for denial's sake. It's about choosing balance over excess, clarity over chaos. In love and money, moderation is the invisible hand that keeps both from collapsing under the weight of too much or too little. Without it, passion burns too hot and exhausts itself. Ambition turns into greed and devours its own gains. In relationships, overindulgence can show up as constant demands for attention, gifts, or affirmation, needs so large that they smother the very bond they seek to strengthen. In finances, it can appear as uncontrolled spending, chasing every desire the moment it arises, until debt chains your future. The Stoics understood that moderation was not a limitation. It was a form of liberation. Seneca warned that it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. When you practice self-discipline, you free yourself from being ruled by impulse. You stop measuring your life by what you can consume and start measuring it by what you can sustain. In love, moderation means pacing the relationship in a way that allows it to deepen naturally. It's resisting the urge to demand perfection or constant validation. It's giving your partner space to breathe and grow, even when every instinct wants to hold on tighter. It's understanding that love, like a fire, needs both fuel and air. It cannot survive if it's smothered. In money, moderation is the quiet strength that keeps you from making reckless purchases in moments of excitement or fear. It's creating a budget not as a prison, but as a map toward a life you've chosen deliberately. It's the patience to save for something meaningful instead of buying the nearest substitute. And it's the courage to say enough when the world keeps screaming more. Modern science backs this ancient wisdom. The famous Stanford marshmallow experiment, which tested children's ability to delay gratification, found that those who could wait for a second marshmallow later tended to have better life outcomes decades down the line. Higher academic achievement, healthier relationships, and greater financial stability. The Stoics knew this without a single lab coat in sight. They practiced it daily, not because someone promised them more rewards later, but because they understood that mastery over the self is the truest form of power. But moderation is not just about saying no. It's about knowing what to say yes to. Self-discipline creates room for what truly matters. When you spend less on things that don't align with your values, you free resources, both time and money, for the experiences and commitments that enrich your life. When you resist the urge to escalate an argument, you create space for understanding. The hardest part of moderation is that it requires constant awareness. It's not a single decision, it's a way of living. And that's why the Stoics practiced daily reflection. At night, they would review their actions, asking, "Did I go too far today? Did I take too much? Did I give too little?" These small moments of honesty, repeated over years, became a safeguard against drifting into excess. In your own life, begin by noticing where you feel most out of balance. Is it in the hours you give to work at the expense of your partner? Is it in the purchases that leave you with more clutter than contentment? Start small. Choose one place where you can gently pull back and see what space opens up when you do. Because moderation is not the enemy of passion or ambition. It's the structure that allows them to endure. Without self-discipline, love can burn out and money can vanish. With it, both can grow steadily, deeply, and in harmony. And in that balance, you'll find not just peace, but a life that feels whole. Number 4, emotional detachment from outcomes. Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This is not a call to apathy, but to one of the most liberating practices in the Stoic tradition, detaching our emotional state from outcomes we cannot fully control. It's a discipline that transforms how we experience both love and money, because in both, uncertainty is the only certainty. In love, we often fall into the trap of measuring the health of a relationship by the response we get from the other person. If they react with warmth, we feel secure. If they seem distant, our entire emotional ground can collapse. This dependency on outcomes is like building your house on sand. Any shift in the tide, and you're scrambling to keep the structure standing. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care in a way that is not dependent on getting exactly what you want in return. You give your best, not as a transaction, but as an expression of your own values. In money, this principle is just as crucial. You can research investments, save diligently, and follow sound financial advice, but markets will rise and fall, recessions will come and go. If your sense of security rests entirely on a particular number in your bank account or a stock price on a screen, you've handed your peace of mind over to forces beyond your reach. The Stoic approach is to focus on disciplined action and wise decision-making, then let go of the need for guaranteed results. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When applied to love, this means showing up with integrity regardless of how the other person responds. When applied to finances, it means acting with prudence without letting short-term fluctuations shake your long-term vision. There's a story often told about a farmer in ancient China. One day, his horse ran away. His neighbors exclaimed, "Such bad luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with 3 wild horses. "Such good luck," the neighbors said. "Maybe," the farmer replied. Later, his son tried to ride one of the wild horses, fell, and broke his leg. Again the neighbors cried, "Such bad luck." And again, the farmer said, "Maybe." A week later, the army came through the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for war, but the farmer's son was spared because of his injury. The moral? Events themselves are neutral. It is our immediate judgment of them, and our attachment to a specific outcome, that determines our suffering. In practical terms, emotional detachment can be cultivated through mindful awareness. When you feel disappointment, frustration, or anxiety about a result, pause and ask, did I act in alignment with my principles? Did I give my best effort? If the answer is yes, then the outcome is no longer yours to carry. This mindset doesn't numb you, it frees you. It also makes you more resilient. In love, you stop trying to control another's feelings and focus instead on the quality of your own actions. In money, you stop obsessing over every tick of the market and concentrate on the discipline of your financial habits. This shift reduces emotional volatility and increases the likelihood that you'll keep making wise choices, even under pressure. Emotional detachment is not a lack of passion, it's the highest form of commitment. Because when you are not enslaved by the outcome, you can show up fully in the process. You can love without fear, work without desperation, and live without the constant background hum of anxiety. When you place your happiness not in what happens to you, but in how you meet what happens, you stop being a leaf blown by the wind. You become the rooted tree, flexible enough to bend in the storm, but grounded enough not to break. And in that strength, both your relationships and your finances will find a steady, unshakable foundation. Number 5, science and Stoicism, why it works. What the Stoics intuited through observation and lived experience, modern science has begun to confirm through research and data. 2,000 years may separate Marcus Aurelius from contemporary neuroscience, but the human mind, and its tendencies toward fear, desire, and attachment, has changed very little. What has changed is our ability to map and measure the effects of practices the Stoics championed. At its core, Stoicism trains the brain to shift focus from the uncontrollable to the controllable. In psychological terms, This is a form of cognitive reframing, the deliberate reinterpretation of events to reduce emotional distress. When you consciously ask, "Is this within my control?" you engage the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and impulse control. This reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, allowing you to respond with clarity instead of raw reaction. Take the Stoic practice of detachment from outcomes. Modern behavioral economics calls this loss aversion, our tendency to feel the pain of loss more intensely than the pleasure of gain. By training ourselves to measure success by effort rather than results, we sidestep the neurological trap that makes us risk-averse in the wrong moments and reckless in others. This mental reconditioning can stabilize both relationships and finances, keeping decisions anchored in principle rather than panic. Similarly, the Stoic emphasis on moderation aligns with what psychologists call delayed gratification. The famous Stanford marshmallow experiment showed that children who could wait for a second marshmallow later tended to achieve better life outcomes decades down the line. Self-discipline, the Stoics knew, was not about deprivation. It was about preserving your freedom from the tyranny of impulse. Neuroscience confirms that the act of delaying gratification strengthens neural pathways associated with long-term planning, making it easier to repeat the behavior in the future. Even Stoic journaling, those nightly reflections Marcus Aurelius wrote for no audience but himself, finds support in modern research. Expressive writing has been shown to reduce stress, improve immune function, and increase emotional clarity. By articulating thoughts on paper, we give structure to the chaos of the mind, turning vague anxieties into concrete considerations we can address or release. And then there's the practice of distinguishing between what is up to us and what is not. Psychologists refer to this as developing an internal locus of control, the belief that your actions influence your life more than external forces do. Studies consistently link an internal locus of control with higher resilience, better problem-solving skills, and greater satisfaction in both personal and professional life. When applied to love, this means you stop measuring your worth by how someone treats you in a single moment and start focusing on how consistently you embody the kind of partner you aspire to be. When applied to money, it means you accept the inevitability of economic cycles, but still commit to habits that build stability over time. In truth, Stoicism and science share the same goal: to help humans suffer less and live more wisely. Where the Stoics offered timeless principles, science offers empirical evidence. Together, they form a bridge between the wisdom of the past and the tools of the present. This is why Stoicism works, not because it removes life's challenges, but because it reshapes the way we meet them. Neuroscience shows us that our brains can be rewired through repeated thought and behavior. The Stoics simply figured out the rewiring process long before we could see it on an fMRI scan. So when you choose to pause before reacting, to spend in alignment with your values, to detach from what you cannot control, you're not just practicing an ancient philosophy. You're literally reshaping the architecture of your mind. You're building resilience into your neural pathways. You're training yourself to remain steady in love, calm in uncertainty, and free in the only place that ever truly matters, within yourself. Living the harmony. If there is one truth that threads through everything we've explored today, it's this: harmony is not something you find. It's something you create, moment by moment, by mastering yourself. Love and money are not separate worlds. They are two arenas where your inner philosophy plays out in real time. The way you speak to your partner during a disagreement is the same as the way you speak to yourself when markets fall or plans fail. The discipline you show in your spending is the same discipline that keeps you steady when emotions surge. The Stoics didn't give us a list of perfect conditions for happiness. They gave us a way to live so that happiness could exist in any condition. And now, you have the same tools they used, not as abstract theory, but as a daily practice. Here's a simple plan to begin. In the morning, ask yourself, what is in my control today? This grounds your mind before the noise of the world can take it. When making a financial choice, pause and ask, does this align with my deepest values? If the answer is no, step back. In moments of relationship tension, remember moderation. Speak only what serves clarity and kindness. And at night, reflect, did I act in accordance with my principles today? That's it. 4 small touch points, repeated daily, will begin to reshape not only your choices, but your character. Expect resistance. Your mind has been trained by habit to chase outcomes, to react impulsively, to seek comfort in the moment rather than meaning over time. But each time you choose the Stoic path, each time you focus on effort over result, value over impulse, moderation over excess, you strengthen the muscle of inner freedom. And here's the quiet truth the world rarely tells you. Peace and love and peace and money are not about having everything go your way. They're about building yourself into the kind of person who remains steady whether it does or not. A person who can lose a sum of money without losing their mind. Who can hear a partner's frustration without crumbling into defensiveness. Who can look at life as it is, not as they wish it to be, and still walk forward with purpose. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Apply this not just to your finances, but to your heart. When you want less from the world, you have more room to give. And giving, whether it's patience, honesty, or generosity, is the surest way to create lasting harmony in any relationship. So I invite you, as you leave this video, to take these principles off the page and into your day. Test them. See how they change the way you speak, the way you spend, the way you love. Let them be more than ideas. Let them be your daily practice. If what we've explored today resonates with you, join us here on Stoic Now. Subscribe, share your reflections in the comments, and let this be a space where philosophy is not locked in books, but lived in the quiet details of everyday life. Your story, your struggles, your victories, they matter here. And when the noise of the world grows loud again, remember this: peace is not the absence of challenge. It is the presence of a mind that has learned to remain still in the midst of it. Hold fast to what is in your control. Release the rest, and you will find that love and money, instead of being two forces pulling you apart, can become two rivers flowing in the same direction toward a life of calm, purpose, and quiet strength.